Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. And yes, smiling in that other window, that other cockpit seat, is my good buddy Matt Parker from LettermenRow.com, on3.com. Matt Parker is going to be my co-pilot once again on this journey as we fly into signing day for Ohio State 2023. Yes, the 2024 class, but the big signing day for major schools anymore is that quote early signing period, which is coming up this week for the Ohio State University. And Matt Parker, welcome once again to the Tim May Show.
Tim, thanks for having me, man. I always love being on.
And as usual, keep your foot off the rudder pedals and keep your fingers off the buttons in the cockpit here as we fly along. When I ask you to do something, you do it. That's what a co-pilot does. Now get me some coffee.
Here you go.
There you go.
Courtesy of the Linus and Snoopy mug.
I love it. I love it. That was a drinking hint for everybody to take a sip of coffee. But on we go. I'm going to have a special guest on, a little interview I did with Devin Brown. It looks like he's going to get his first start at quarterback for Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri coming up. Man alive, man, this year has flown by, my friend. Coming up in less than 2 weeks as we record this, Ohio State versus Missouri in the Cotton Bowl and in Jerry World, aka AT&T Stadium. I like saying that, aka AT&T Stadium. Be interesting to see who finally does suit up for the Buckeyes in that game, but that's a conversation for another day. But Matt Parker, I've also got a conversation coming up with Pete Nakos from on3.com, one of our good buddies who lives right here in the Central Ohio area, but he has become On3's guru when it comes to fellas jumping into the portal, et cetera, and the NIL situation. And we're going to get his latest on how Ohio State has done in the NIL portal, which I think to have done, maybe that's premature. Ohio State might do in the transfer portal, because as we sit here right now, I don't think they've signed anybody from the transfer portal. Have they, Matt Parker?
They have not. It's just they've had guys go into the portal, but
They've contributed.
they give to the portal. The portal has not given back.
Yeah, they're the drain into the portal, but where's the income from the portal? That remains to be seen, whether they might even go much into the portal. But I want to get into this with you, Matt Parker, recruiting guru. Are you a guru, by the way?
I'm working on it. I'm
Yeah.
working on acquiring and achieving guru status.
Guru status. But
Yeah.
I think we talked about that the last time you were on here. I don't know who you got to pay to get the guru status, but you ought to look into it. Bottom line is, this has been an interesting journey, and it's far from over for Ohio State for the 2024 class. Signing day is coming up on Wednesday of this week. What is that? December the 20th. And of course, there's another one in February, the first week in February. But Matt, it's kind of been the last several weeks, it's kind of been watching Ohio State sort of herd cats into the corral. Some of them have gone obediently. Some are starting to stray. Some may stray totally. Just what's your take on this 2024 class? At least Ohio State right now is hoping to sign, I think, is hoping the right word, at least 22 guys on Wednesday as we speak. We're recording this on a Monday morning, but what do you think let me just throw this out there. What do you think your number will be on this class from the standpoint of how many will sign on Wednesday in that early signing period?
I'm going to say 20. I'm going to say 22, but it's not the 22 that are committed right now. The biggest kind of we're speaking in analogies here as we're getting this show off the ground and into the air. You ever seen those videos of a track runner trying to do hurdles, and every time the runner can't clear the hurdles, and it's just they're tripping over themselves and dragging the hurdles along with them? That's kind of what it feels like watching Ohio State hurl its way to December 20th, the opening of the early signing period, which is a 2-day thing. It closes December 20th. So kids can sign starting the 20th until the 22nd.
Yeah.
And the last weekend here, Ohio State and the rest of the college football world is now in a dead period on the recruiting calendar. That started Monday morning, and that meaning kids and programs can't have any contact unless the prospect reaches out first. No in-person visits, anything like that. Those are all done. Those wrapped up on Sunday. Um, and plenty of kids, plenty of Ohio State commits made the opportunity to go see schools that aren't Ohio State over the weekend. Four-star running back Jordan Lyle from Fort Lauderdale plays at St. Thomas Aquinas, which most Ohio State fans will know that is the high school that produced the Bosa brothers.
Yep.
Both Joey and
Nick.
Nick. Yeah, having a lull here.
That's because you got a lot of names in your head, brother.
That's true. That is true. Jordan Lyle has been committed to Ohio State since April 29th of this year and made an official visit to nearby University of Miami. And Miami has been a school that has really poached Ohio State the last couple of years. Last year, they running back commit Mark Fletcher decommitted from Ohio State, and then on signing day signed with the Hurricanes and had a pretty successful freshman year by all accounts down there in Coral Gables. And now Miami's trying to do the same thing with Jordan Lyle. Early rumblings from that visit is that, I mean, it went as well as it can for Miami, short of flipping him from the Ohio State class. If there is any reason to, I guess, have any kind of positive spin on it, if you will, I don't like to put a spin zone on it, but Ohio State does have two other running backs committed in the class with James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon, and both of those guys are supremely talented in their own right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going to Ohio State.
Yep.
And both of them are expected to sign on Wednesday, and both will be early enrollees, so they'll be on campus in January. So if you lose one of your three for Tony Alford, obviously you don't want to lose any guys, but of the guys that are in this class right now that have really looked at places elsewhere, I think Jordan Lyle is the guy that we have to look at and expect him to not sign with the Buckeyes. And the recent development that happened over this past weekend was five-star defensive end Edric Houston made very surprise visits to Clemson on Friday and then to Alabama on Saturday. The reason for those visits, I mean, everyone can have a different, I guess, take on it for whatever. No one's ever going to come right out and say why they're visiting two schools that were hats on the table for them 6 months ago and, been locked in with Ohio State seemingly ever since he made the commitment. But makes those two unofficial visits to Clemson and Alabama. And now it's just a lot of wait and see right now with Ohio State. And Tim, I mean, you've been covering Ohio State for 40 years. Spencer Holbrook calls you the 40-year vet. Have you ever seen Ohio State in such a defensive position when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, I've seen that several times because number one, for example, Jordan Lyle sitting down there in Fort Lauderdale. He's not sitting in, Lancaster, Ohio. And of course they stayed on him. He's a big time recruit. I'm talking about in Miami, and that lure to stay home and be a superstar in your own backyard, in your mind. I mean, that's what I'm sure they're selling him on. That's not a big surprise to me. And then Edric Houston, where's he from? He's from Buford, Georgia. Where Dylan Raiola, I think, didn't Dylan Raiola end up spending his, I'm trying to remember where he ended up going to school his senior season, the quarterback. I think didn't he end up at Buford? Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, he's originally from.
I know he's originally from. We're going to get into that in a minute. But my point is,
his senior season was at Buford.
Yeah, until you sign with somebody, you're basically a free agent, and I think you're making a mistake if you, from the standpoint of this is that one time in your life where you've got people reaching out to you to join. You know what? That's wrong. This is no longer the one time in your life because next year you could be in the transfer portal and the year after that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just I was trying to be facetious there, but I wasn't. Bottom line is, I think you're a fool not to take visits and see what the other place has to offer. But I think you're also a fool to be lured at the last second to some place just because of the neon lights, etc., that they can shine in your eyes. When in fact you've been sold on where you were going, where you'd made up your mind and where you were going for like a while now. I think Edric Houston going to be interesting to see if Ohio State finishes up with him, because I think he committed what back in August. I think they've had a good feeling about him. But these are big time recruits are going after. Edric Houston is 5-star. These guys that are recruiting 5-stars, you don't give up on 5-stars, man. You keep calling them, like Jeremiah Smith. You're the wide receiver from Hollywood, Florida. I mean, the bottom line is, do you feel good about him signing on Wednesday and completing the Jeremiah Smith cycle? I mean, there's a guy that I'm very interested in who could make a sudden impact with this class. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Florida State has certainly made this interesting. With
Yep.
Jeremy Smith took his official visit to Florida State December 8th through the 10th, second weekend of December there. And you know what? By all counts, I mean, Jeremiah Smith has been committed to Ohio State since December 14th of 2022. The same day that Lincoln Keenhol's committed to Ohio State, mind you, freshman quarterback
Yeah.
for the Buckeyes. Those were 12 hours apart, though, so that was quite the busy day for me. But as we're getting back to Jeremiah Smith here, I mean, Florida State has certainly made things interesting. And then, you see the effect that Florida State has had 13-0 this year, ACC champs. Keon Coleman had, a great year for the Seminoles. I mean, they didn't make the playoff at 13-0, but we're not going to get into that entire debacle. I mean, Florida State certainly made things interesting, but there's only really one school right now that has, over the last, 5-6 years, had multiple first-round draft picks. I mean, that we don't have to. What Ohio State has done on the recruiting trail and developing and then sending into the NFL with its wide receivers is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's all led by Brian Hartline, former Ohio State wide receiver, now running the room in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Brian Hartline's relationship with Jeremiah Smith, you're not going to find a better relationship with any coach and any prospect across the country, in my opinion. Ohio State's been recruiting Jeremiah since he was a freshman in high school. So to put in that much time and that much effort and, making the trips down to South Florida to go see him play. And he's one of the more polished prospects, regardless of position, that we've seen in a long time.
Yep.
In any recruiting cycle. And you mentioned has the chance to make an immediate impact. We're all, expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to announce his intentions to declare for the NFL draft sometime soon, maybe even this week. Who knows? And the jury's still out for Emeka Ibuka, the junior wide receiver. Julian Fleming has put himself in the transfer portal. Xavier Johnson is the hourglass is reaching the very end for the Cincinnati guy. And there's a lot of opportunity for young Jeremiah Smith to come to Ohio State and make some serious noise. And I think he's going to do that. I still believe, knowing the things that I know and talking with the people that I do. And then also, you know what? Sometimes you kind of just have to have a gut check with these things. You mentioned take the visit. Take the visits. You only get this opportunity once in your life, and these kids and their families, they work so hard for it. All of them. I mean, it's not just Jeremiah Smith going out there, it's his parents, his loved ones and things like that. And they deserve to go see all of these places.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, then you make a football and business decision. I think Ohio State on December 20th, when the Ohio State football Twitter account announces, from Hollywood, Florida, Jeremiah Smith, welcome to the Brotherhood. I think a lot of people you'll hear there'll be a collective sigh from Columbus, Ohio, that finally this saga is over with. So, but if I'm wrong, be sure to let me know. Have the folks let me know. But that's where I sit right now.
I got you, man. Well, hey, I want to let you know something. Christmas is coming right around the corner too. I mean, it's funny, signing day followed by Christmas, and ladies and gentlemen, if you put off that big time Christmas gift for your loved one, the Gametime app, gametime.co, might have the answer for you. Bottom line is, it's becoming it has become one of the great go-to aftermarket sales for tickets for sporting events, concerts, etc. In the country. And whether you're going to the Cotton Bowl, whether you're going to a Columbus Blue Jackets game, whether you're going to an Ohio State women's basketball game, Ohio State men's basketball game, which could end up being one of the hottest tickets in town as this season ensues with the Ohio State men's team. Bottom line is that Gametime app, gametime.co, is the place to go. And remember, if you download the Gametime app and use the promo code Buckeyes, Buckeyes, promo code Buckeyes, you get $20 off your first purchase. That's a hell of a deal. It's like one of those pre-Christmas big time blue light specials. The Gametime app, gametime.co. And remember, the other guarantee with Gametime is if you find a ticket in the same row, same section for less money than what you paid on the Gametime app, Gametime will refund 110% of the difference. That's a hell of a deal. That's a hell of a deal. So if you get that discount and then you get 110% of the difference back if you find it for a lower price, I mean, that first time around, Gametime wants your business and they're working hard for your business. And remember, as always, terms do apply in these things. But the Gametime app, gametime.co, that's the place to go anymore for those last minute gift ideas, etc., for tickets. Or heck, in January when you're just sitting around, hey, I want to go to a Blue Jackets game. Go to the Gametime app. They'll have tickets for you. That's the Gametime app, gametime.co. Hey, Matt Parker, I'm sure you've got all your shopping done, but probably not, just much like me. Bottom line is, speaking of Christmas, is Jeremiah Smith, is this the best gift under the tree in this 2024 early signing period recruiting class for Ohio State?
I mean, he's got to be. He's the number one overall prospect in the On3 industry rankings, which is a combination of all of the rankings from all the recruiting services. I mean, just he's a freak, Tim.
He looks the part, man.
He's a high school senior wide receiver that's 6'3", 200 pounds. I had the opportunity to watch him compete this summer out in Los Angeles at some 7-on-7 passing tournaments, and he could have started. I say this with some certainty. He could have started at some college programs as a high school senior this fall. He is that guy, and to go from what Marvin Harrison Jr. has been to potentially go to a guy like Jeremiah Smith. I'm not comparing the two, but I am saying that there's every opportunity in the world for Jeremiah Smith to just pick up what his predecessors have left for him at Ohio State. And I think if and when he signs his letter of intent, I think Ohio State fans should really, really get excited. But there are plenty of other talented prospects throughout this Ohio State recruiting class. I'm sure we'll get into more of them as we go on.
We're definitely going to. But you know what? This coming spring, who's going to be throwing the ball to Jeremiah Smith? Obviously, Aaron Noland is expected to sign with this Ohio State class, et cetera. We're going to get in a moment. But, let's get to my conversation with Devin Brown, who could be that guy throwing the ball a lot to Jeremiah Smith in the spring. It looks like he's going to make his first collegiate start in the Cotton Bowl of all places, with Kyle McCord hitting the transfer portal and committing finally to Syracuse. Good luck to Kyle McCord. He's going to a rebuilding program, that's for sure, because Syracuse he's going to have a brand new head coach this coming season, et cetera. But, that's all that's news in the past. Devin Brown always has his eyes fixed forward. And you know this about him, right, Matt Parker? I mean, he's an interesting, upbeat, positive thinking fellow, right?
I mean, anyone in the modern age who switches a quarterback that switches to number 33 for a very, very, very solid reason. He is his own person. I'll say that.
Well, what's interesting too about him is 33. He did it basically as an homage to a former quarterback named Sammy Baugh from the 1930s and 40s And the
Right.
interesting thing is his first start's going to be about 20 miles from where Sammy Ball played college football at TCU. So that's TCU's in Fort Worth. Of course, Jerry World is halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth. So that's kind of a coinky dink in some ways. But, there's more to Devin Brown than just the number 33. So let's get into my conversation here. After, we got to talk with Devin Brown earlier this bowl practice season. And let's get into my little conversation with him, how much he is eagerly anticipating his first collegiate start. Devin Brown, you're going to get that shot, and I would think the excitement is already kind of bubbling in your blood right now of being the starting quarterback for Ohio State. As I asked you earlier, how do you kind of keep that under control, going into this Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very big moment, and I mean, my very first, real game to get in there and go compete is a top 10 matchup against a really good team in a bowl game that we got to go win. But just got to treat it like every other game. It's football that I've been playing since I was 7 years old, so I just got to have fun with it.
How tough is it to be playing football since you're 7 years old, but having to wait your turn? I mean, you came here. I remember having you on my podcast way back when. Quinn Ewers was in that room when you showed up. I mean, competition didn't bother you at all. But how tough has it been to wait?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of part of the process and how to take it one step at a time. But it's very different, going from playing every season to not playing for 2 years. But just getting those reps in practice have been very important to keep building and, be ready for this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you put your heart and your soul and your life into this endeavor, right? And I asked you a while ago, but what's it like to have to wait and stuff? But do you play games in your mind all the time? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Do you put yourself in situations and predicaments and knowing what to do in two minutes, knowing what to do, and you're bleeding clot? Go ahead. I mean, how do you? I would think you do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that since fall camp and since spring. I mean, we're always working on the situations because that's really what these big games come down to, is the situations, and we got to win each one. So that's what we've been preparing for, and what I really study in the film room too.
What is the strangest way you've gotten an opportunity to play in the past when maybe you were waiting your turn a little bit? I mean, where somebody got hurt or somebody moved on, somebody changed schools. You changed schools as a senior, from Arizona to Utah.
I'd say, I mean, I started the season everywhere I've been, but I think probably the strangest way was with my dad. In youth football, I wasn't playing good. Like, I crapped the bed one game, and he benched me for another kid. Your own dad benches you as a starting quarterback, so I was pissed off. And he kind of fired me up again and then got back going, and we ended up winning the state championship that year. So it was funny getting benched.
You remember that lesson, though, right? I mean, somebody can take it away from you in a heartbeat, right? This is one of those few sports where somebody can say, you're not in, this guy's in, right? I mean, how does that just, I guess, sharpen the blade to a certain extent that you got to be sharp all the time,
Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of the game. You got to be at your best all the time, especially at a place like Ohio State. They expect, you to go out there and be one of the best players in the country because that's who the quarterback is.
How did you handle the supreme disappointment of not winning the starting job at the beginning of this season? I remember when Kirk Herbstreit, I saw him get the word on the practice field that Kent Graham was going to be the starter in 1991, not him. I saw him put his head down, was dealt with it for a while, and then came back, and obviously got to be the starter the next year and stuff. But how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't go how I wanted it to go. But I just treated like every week like I was going to be the starter and I was going to go in and play. So it really didn't change anything for me in my mentality.
Yeah. See, my theory all along was I thought middle of the year, Ryan Day was trying to get you into the game somehow, some way, get you acclimated so he could have a choice at quarterback to a certain extent, and then boom, the ankle, right? Did you cry that night? Did you, after the injury? I mean, because it was coming on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was excited. I felt like I had a great game against Purdue. I mean, I had the one fumble, but other than that, I felt like I had a really good game. And it felt like something that was going to keep going, and should have scored against Penn State. I thought it was pretty close. Probably would have had a couple scores in that game, if we kept going. And it sucked, like you said. I mean, I didn't cry or anything. I was just more so frustrated and pissed off. I was just my first thought was, when can I go back out there? And that's always been my thought.
Yeah, high ankle sprain. Yeah. There ain't nothing like a high ankle sprain, is it? Because one little tweak, as you found out in the pregame warm-up and stuff, you feel about as close as you felt to 100%.
Yeah,
at this
definitely.
Point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with it anymore.
Last thing. This isn't a slam on Kyle. I'm just throwing it out there because this is what I thought all year. I like Kyle. I think he's a hell of a quarterback. But just seemed like there was something missing in what I call the dynamic aspect where, you know what I mean, it just make it a play. You know what I mean, for want of another term.
It seems like you've got that in you. This isn't, I'm not trying to get you to compare yourself to Kyle, but you do, when you're on the field and you're playing quarterback, do you feel, what is that feeling like? And do you feel like any play can be a play? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's all really just natural reactions. You know, when something breaks down, I feel like that I have that ability to go make something happen, and that's how I've always played. So just got to keep building on it and, you know, see how it really translates to a real game.
Yeah. My last question. I asked you a while ago about the excitement, et cetera. Do you know the playbook inside and out now? I mean, can Ryan Day call anything he wants to call in the, you know, basically y'all worked on it, et cetera.
Yeah.
But how prepared do you feel like you'll be in that Cotton Bowl to play?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be very prepared. You know, we have a whole month to game plan for him, and I've already been on the film for a while, so it's going to be good.
Man, I always enjoy talking to Devin Brown. One of the reasons is I had him on my on the Tim May show here, 2 years ago when he first committed to Ohio State, when Quinn Ewers was still in that Ohio State quarterback room, along with a lot of other guys. And Devin Brown plunged head first into that room because he wanted the competition. He relished the competition. And now all of a sudden it looks like Matt Parker's his shot, right? And it'll be interesting to see how much he takes, how much advantage he takes of this opportunity.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to just get out there and do his thing. The thing I appreciate most about Devin Brown and the few opportunities that we've had to speak with him and really listen to him talk is just the confidence that he has. I mean, he exudes that confidence that you want a quarterback at the Ohio State University to have. And, you know, between his social media usage with, you know, the burning the boats and everything like that, like I hope he puts on a show December 29th. I think that's what he's hoping and working towards too as well.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day and company just want him to steer the boat through the burning harbor, you know, and out to calmer seas. It's going to be interesting, you know, just to watch that, because you don't want a guy too pumped up about that first start, because as you even watch pro football anymore, guys pop up out of nowhere. You never saw them because you've never played before in a big time game, and guys can pop up out of nowhere, you know, defensively and ruin your day. So I think they're hoping he plays under control, but definitely harnesses his enthusiasm. You know, with that said, before we move to my conversation with Pete Nakos from on3.com, I wanted to ask you this. You know, there's going to be competition in the spring at quarterback, Ryan Day hopes. Right now, what are your thoughts on Ohio State picking up someone in this early transfer portal period? That's what I call it, you know, just like early signing period, to be in that room, to be in that quarterback competition with Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, the freshman this year, and then the signee and early enrollee. I think Aaron Nolan's coming in early, right? What do you think the chances are Ohio State's going to pick up somebody in the transfer portal?
I just can't see it happening. I don't know about how you feel about this, but it just feels like there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of different facets within the Ohio State program right now. One of those being in the quarterback room, and uncertainty in the aspect of what is exactly the talent level with the guys that Ohio State, Ryan Day, Corey Dennis have recruited. They certainly don't recruit any slouches, but recruiting is an investment, and especially when they recruit these guys from high school instead of just the transfer portal. No, I mean, there is, I'm sure, someone in the transfer portal, some quarterback Ohio State has had a conversation with when they were high schoolers or something like that. And, you know, they have a relationship and things like that. But
Sure,
the time and investment that, you know, Ryan Day and Corey Dennis have made into Devin Brown and Devin Brown's family, and as well as Lincoln Keenholz and his family, and now Aaron Nolan coming in January and his family. I think you owe those guys the chance to, now granted, if there's someone that jumps in the portal, you know, before January 2nd, which is when it closes, if someone jumps in the portal that, you know, like really catches Ohio State's eye, they'd be a fool to not pursue it, as long as it works out with, you know, not totally destroying the room with the guys that Ohio State has put the time and effort in and those, you know, relationships.
yeah.
But I think right now, I think Ohio State, if they are to take someone right now, I think it's more of a Tristan Gebbia kind of person, to just have another veteran presence in the room, not someone that is going to be looking to make, an impact on the field per se, but another coach in the room, a presence in the room. Now we'll see what happens in the spring when that spring portal opens up, and after spring ball is done, or what have you, for Ohio State. And if Ryan Day still isn't wowed with what he's seen, take a chance on someone, go into the summer and go from there. But I personally, I would expect Ohio State to just kind of, at this point, not do much of anything and roll into spring ball with those three guys that they've spent a lot of time and effort on recruiting since they were 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Or with Lincoln Keno's case, maybe since he was 17 years old.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was a late addition.
From Pierre, South Dakota, the proud capital of South Dakota. Yeah, but man, everybody that I talk to, in and around the program, we get to watch practice. I mean, they like that guy. I mean, because now he's majoring in football and is quite the athlete, as we well know. Was a 3-sport star. I think it was just 3 sports in Pierre, South Dakota. And I think he has a tremendous upside. Whether you'll get to realize that, in the next year or so at Ohio State remains to be seen. But, speaking of the transfer portal, had a conversation with Pete Nakos. He seems to be on top of every movement and every shake in the transfer portal these days. A guy well, a guy that I'm getting to know well, part of the on3.com family. He's on top of things. Let's get to my conversation with him on Ohio State in the transfer portal, losing 14, 15 guys to it. I'm not sure I count walk-ons as a loss, but we'll see what Pete Nakos thinks. But how badly was Ohio State hurt in the transfer portal in terms of people going into it, with the exception of losing their starting quarterback and Julian Fleming? I don't know. I mean, it's Julian Fleming was rumored to be transferring last year about this time, but he stuck around, and so we'll get into a conversation with Pete Nakos about that. Ladies and gentlemen, here's my conversation. Wow, I'm happy to welcome back to the Tim May Show one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite guys I've met in the last couple of years. He's the transfer portal reporter, ladies and gentlemen, for on3.com. Pete Nakos, welcome back to the Tim May Show, my man.
What's shaking, Tim?
Man, a lot of things are shaking, brother. The winds are blowing, things are shaking. College football, travels on. I mean, people are trying to find those Westerlies that are going to take them to the national championship in terms of winds that are blowing. You're keeping up with the transfer portal. You become the sort of the Adam Schefter of transfer portal reporting. Congratulations on that. The Pete Damel of transfer portal reporting. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
When you were at Ohio University, right? Isn't that where you went to school?
I was.
Hallowed Ohio University. My older son has got a degree from Ohio University. That was not a slam in any form or fashion. They took my money like any other university would. But the bottom line is, did you dream your sophomore year at Ohio University or junior year of being the transfer portal reporter for on3.com? Actually, neither one of those existed, I don't think, when you were a sophomore or junior. Go ahead.
I'm not sure I dreamed it up, but I love my job and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing right now.
Isn't it crazy? What word would you use to describe the current status of the transfer portal phenomenon?
Just one word, I'd use chaos, probably.
Didn't you use that same word last year when we talked? I mean,
I think I did. I don't really. It's a fun chaos, though, right? Like, I mean, from where I sit, I'm on the phone all day. I'm talking to people. I'm trying to get the latest on where player X or Y is going, or if school Y pushed someone out the door. Like, I enjoy tracking that stuff down. But yeah, it's chaotic. The chaos has calmed down, though, right? Day one of the portal, Kyle McCord went in at 6:30 in the morning, and we're kind of off to the races.
A lot of us weren't. Let's see, we weren't we were surprised, but we weren't shocked. You know what I mean? With the Cal McCord thing, based on what we were hearing and things like that. How would you describe the Cal McCord transfer portal news when it came down from your vantage point?
In terms of like how it all kind of shook
Yeah,
out at Ohio
in other
State.
words, from what we here, my point is, what kind of impact did that have on the transfer portal from your standpoint? A guy who started 13 games at Ohio State, was 12-1, 11-1 this past season, was 37 yards away from perhaps leading another great comeback, and the interception happened because he got hit as he threw the ball. But the bottom line was, the next thing you know, 2 weeks later or a week and a half later, he's in the transfer portal. Was that
Yeah.
was that, like I said, a lot of us were hearing rumblings leading up to the opening of the transfer portal in terms of Cal McCord. So my line was, I was surprised, but I wasn't shocked. You understand what I'm saying? Because
I would agree with that. I mean, even 48 hours after the Michigan game, I was taking phone calls and hearing like there's a good chance he leaves and everything. Now,
yeah,
personally, I wasn't expecting the 6:30 a.m. entering the transfer portal news. I thought it was going to be more like a maybe late week 1, early week 2, they make the decision. But no, I mean, he was like one of like the first big names to go in. And I wouldn't say I was stunned. It was more like, all right, we're off to the races. Like, this is how we're going to kick things off. In terms of how Kyle has impacted the transfer portal, I'll be honest with you, Tim. I didn't see him slipping all the way down to Syracuse, and that's
yeah,
not a shot at the Orange. Fran Brown has that thing going. I think they'll be a really good team in the ACC next year, especially with Kyle. But there was a solid, like 72 to 96 hours there where I thought he was a lock to Nebraska. And
yeah,
then Dylan Raiola pops back up, as Ohio State fans know who he is pretty well.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's been pretty wild following his portal recruitment, to be honest with you. I know Louisville was in it for a minute. I know there's a thought about Mississippi State for real quick, and then it was all Nebraska, and then it wasn't. So yeah, it's been really interesting to cover.
Yeah, it's been pretty funny, because I thought if Louisville had Cal McCord, they might have beaten Florida State. You know, I mean, but that's another story. I mean, it's crazy, but you just touched on it. So I was going to go there last, but I'm going to go there first. Dylan Raiola, the highly touted quarterback prospect, now from Buford, Georgia. Well, I think when he was first making news with Ohio State, he was from Burleson, Texas. He's moved all over to Arizona, I think, into Buford, but he's had his own transfer portal going on before he ever gets to college. I mean, it is
Yeah.
it is a crazy world out there right now, isn't it, Pete? Like you just said, chaos times two.
It's wild.
Yeah, I mean,
It's wild.
does Nebraska end up landing him on signing day? What's your take?
I'm expecting that Dylan Raiola will flip to Nebraska. I'm not going to say it's a done deal, but it's pretty darn close. So yeah, that's the expectation right now around college football.
And as you know, ladies and gentlemen, he was committed to Ohio State at one point, was committed to Georgia. Georgia, I think, is trying to hold on to him. I think, but it is nuts. Just real quick, I want to hit you with this. Like I said, you're the transfer portal reporter. There was no such thing as a transfer portal 4 years ago. There were guys who left, graduate transfers, guys like that, or Justin Fields, who've had for want of another term, a hardship transfer, and was allowed to play immediately at Ohio State in 2019 and stuff. But is the transfer portal, is it reshaping college football every season? What do you see? What do you see going on from your vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, I think case in point, right? Like Ole Miss just completely dominated this weekend in the transfer portal. They landed Juice Wells yesterday. They've added some really big defensive pieces, and the
Yeah.
reason why I think everyone is like, wow, like Ole Miss is killing it and stuff is we're going to this 12-team expansion model, right? And all of a sudden, those like fringe top 15 teams, if you add the right portal pieces, now you're going to be actually looking at a CFP berth. And I mean, that changes everything, right? If anything, it prioritizes rebuilding rosters more because there's a legitimate shot at the postseason for a program that never thought it could actually make the BCS or CFP, just because the Ohio States and the Alabamas of the world were always right in the mix.
Yeah. But what is fueling this? I mean, are there literally update people? Are there literally NIL deals just being dangled like carrots now? I mean, how would you describe that aspect combined with the transfer portal? I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, I was putting forth that if Bryce Young and CJ Stroud going into what turned out to be their last years at Alabama and Ohio State respectively, if they had jumped in the transfer portal going into the 2022 season and just taken the highest bid, right? And wow, would that have shaken things up? But now I think we're actually seeing that, aren't we? We're seeing starting quarterbacks leave for whatever reason or another. Am I wrong about what's dangling out there for these people?
So like NIL definitely plays a factor, Tim, but I think like you also have to like case in point, right? Like Cam Ward, a DJ Uiagalelei, a Will Howard, like all good quarterbacks, but all quarterbacks who are probably not ready for the NFL, or at least they're being told they're not ready for the NFL.
Right.
That remains to be seen with Cam Ward. I keep hearing he might go to the NFL, but the point is like there's NIL dollars to be made. They can grad transfer. So NIL definitely factors in. And going back to Nebraska real quick, right? I'm sure you heard Matt Rule's comments about the elite quarterback market for $1 to $2 million per year for an elite quarterback.
Yeah.
I think there's probably like 5 to 7 guys who can command that price right now. NIL definitely factors in. I think at the end of the day, though, just like it was with the hardship waivers and things like that, athletes want to play right away. If that doesn't happen, they try to go find a new home. Except now it's a lot easier with the one-time transfer rule.
Yeah. Ohio State's as we speak, I think Ohio State has had 16 jump into the transfer portal, including Cal McCord. I think 1 or 2 walk-ons are included in that list. I don't necessarily include those guys I'm not knocking their efforts and stuff, but guys I've hardly even heard of. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's hard to include them with a Jair Brown and some of these other guys. But Ohio State has had, I think, 16 jump in, like we said, signed 0 that I know of as we record this, or had 0 commit to them. What do you think's going on at Ohio State from your perspective?
I think it's attrition. We don't need to break down the entire 16-man list, but Tim, I think you'd agree with this. Like, there's definitely a couple names that pop out and stuff, but there aren't any like, man, like this is really going to impact the 2024 season, right? Like, Ryan Day, Kyle McCord, they didn't want to call Kyle the starter like 3 days after the Michigan game, which is extremely understandable. Julian Fleming was losing reps to Carnell Tate and Brendan Ennis, so he grad transferred and he's going to go find a new home. Amari Abor is kind of one where you're like, oh, that hurts, but they've really prioritized the defensive line in the portal, and I think we're pretty confident that they can reload there, no problem, especially if JT and Jack come back. There's rumblings of that. We don't know that yet, but it seems like that could be on track. So I think the point is, and there's the Texas defensive lineman, Trey Moore from UTSA, and just talking to some sources around Ohio State, like they called off that visit, which is obviously a sign that they're confident things are going to look good at those spots in 2024. So I think the point is, we're not. Marvin Harrison's going to the NFL. He didn't go in the portal. Like it's not code red in Columbus right now. But yeah, it's definitely interesting that they've had 16 guys go in.
Did you call that code red? Did you call that code red? Go ahead and say it. You damn right I did. Who's been hurt most by the transfer portal from your vantage point? North Carolina State's had 18 guys leave or something. Go ahead.
Yeah. NC State, Indiana, Cincinnati, Vanderbilt, and Georgia. Georgia lost AJ Harris on Friday, which is just like a stunning development at 4:00 on Friday afternoon. Georgia, yet again, though, they've had something between maybe 12 to 18 guys go in. I don't know the exact one.
I think they've had 15 or 16 as we record this. Yeah.
So, but yet again, similar to Ohio State, there's some guys who are just never going to see the field there. And then, you have a couple stunners probably being led off by Marvin Jones and AJ Harris.
Yeah. So this is the way of the world now. Right now, there's a hearing as we're recording. There's a hearing going on in West Los Angeles that On3.com is on top of. You guys are on top of, and I'm part of that On3 family, but sort of a third cousin. But that basically saying, I think USC is involved with this, with some of their football and men's and women's basketball, about the idea that they should be employees of the university based on definitions of employees and stuff. And it's going to be kind of like considered by the National Labor Relations Board on how to classify that. Are we really close, Pete, and close means in the next 2 or 3 years, of college football and men's and women's basketball players becoming, for and maybe some other sports? I think women's volleyball is on the big time rise. Right, all kinds of things we thought there. But the bottom, are we closer than ever to student athletes becoming, in fact, student employees of the universities?
We are as close as we have ever been, Tim. Yeah, the NLRB hearing begins today. I think it's against USC, the NCAA, and Pac-12.
Yeah.
I mean, this, right? The court cases, that the hearings, I mean, we're not going to get like a final decision at 5 p.m. Eastern today. It's going to be months, if not years, but we're trending in that direction. I'm not sure if listeners saw that Charlie Baker proposed like a new FBS subdivision in the last couple of weeks. That's like the NCAA's safety hatch to avoid employment and also share some revenue with athletes. But yet again, it's one of those proposals where it's going to need an antitrust exemption from Congress. And we know what happens when Congress steps in. It never goes as planned. And the NCAA has been hoping for something like for the last 9 months from DC, and it hasn't happened. So, the courts might have their way before the NCAA can put something else into place.
Yeah, it's almost like the NCAA, the latest proposal. It's almost like they want everything about a contract except the contract. You know what I mean, with the players. I mean, because I think a lot of people, like you just used the word chaos for the transfer portal and the situation. When you meld those with the NIL and stuff. But the only way to really get control of the situation is to have players under contract, in some form or fashion. No matter what you call it, right? And then you control where they go, but they also share in the pie. And I'm not trying to get you to give me a judgment on whether, because players should have been sharing in the pie a long time ago. I was advocating that 30, 40 years ago. I just don't understand, when you're making a big time profit, why the people who are actually going out there, they're getting their schooling paid for along with a lot of other things. But the bottom line is, coaches were under contracts way back when for lower amounts of money, and now they're making outrageous sums, and the athletes are still supposed to be happy with pretty much tuition, room and board, and some cost of living or cost of going to school kind of things. But do you see the NCAA, from your projection point, getting a handle on this in the next couple of years, where it can control the quote marketplace, end quote?
I don't anticipate that. I'm still expecting that there's going to be some sort of new college football leadership, whether it's from the CFP or something else. And I mean, we're in for a reckoning, Tim. It's really going to completely change the sport, I believe. Someone I think Matt Brown made a really good point last week on Paul Feinbaum show, and I'll echo it. We're headed towards a time in college sports where schools are not going to be able to pay an athlete and then also pay their strength coach a lot of money. I think just how we look at college sports is really going to change. And is it a professionalized model? Is it closer to the NFL? Not really sure how it shakes out. But I think realignment this past summer really was the cherry on top for okay, it is very clear that we are not in a space anymore where it prioritizes athletes.
Yeah, well, just look at coaches' contracts and strength and conditioning coaches' contracts. Where I'm talking about the upper crust, the upper level, they started spreading all the profits out with those folks. You know what I mean? A long time ago. So it would be hard to put that genie back in the bottle. I agree, but you understand what I mean. Instead of spreading it out to the players involved, et cetera. But hey, last thing, who's benefited most who's benefited most to this moment as you and I speak on a Monday morning, mid-morning, midday actually on Monday from the transfer portal so far? I'm going to give you my answer. Looks like, just from the standpoint of numbers, Colorado's had what, 12, 13 guys leave, but Coach Prime has 16 so far coming in. Some of them are pretty reputable players. Is Coach Prime once again stirring that pot big time, better than anybody?
Yeah, I mean, he added a bunch of offensive linemen too, which
Yeah.
anyone who watched them play like from October to the end of the season knew that. So we'll see how that all comes together. My transfer portal winner on mid-morning Monday is definitely Louisville. I mean, they had the Alabama transfer Ja'Cory Brooks. They added Colin Lacey, the South Alabama wide receiver. They added the Harvard defense lineman Thor Griffith. They ranked number 1 in on-through's transfer portal rankings right now. I mean, they're just raking it up right now. And I said this last week with Andy Staples, but that's just credit to their NIL program being put together correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff Bra, man, getting it done. I mean, transfers back to his takes a job back at his alma mater, and they've had 11 guys leave as we speak, and they've signed 12 or have 12 committed to be part of that transfer portal. Hey, let me ask you one last question, one bonus question.
Yeah.
If you could wave a magic wand, I think I asked you this the last time, but I'm gonna see if you have a new magic trick. If you could wave a magic wand to get control of the chaos that this has, and by chaos I mean keeping up with what the hell's going on. I mean, so many starting quarterbacks jumping into the portal. It's crazy. You know, I mean, here's Notre Dame once again looking to the ACC, where it's a sort of a part and parcel member of the ACC, to get their starting quarterback, and I believe he's going to be upgrade from what they even had this year. The kid from Duke, like him a lot. But if you could wave your magic wand to dampen the chaos and make things more understandable for your average fan, what would you do?
I don't want to dampen the chaos. I think the transfer portal is just getting started in the chaos. I think that we're headed towards a system where athletes are going to be able to transfer multiple times. But if you want a solution, I already brought it up. We cannot, I shouldn't say we, the NCAA cannot try to rule Division I college football and then also worry about Division III football at the same time. It's definitely time for the top, 60 college football programs to break off and operate under their own model. And by doing so, it probably saved the NCAA model at the same time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Nakos. I mean, of course, he's going to be for the transfer portal because he's a transfer portal reporter extraordinaire for On3.com. Pete, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and thanks for joining the Tim May show again, my man.
I appreciate it. Happy holidays, Tim.
Man, Pete Nakos, you got to give it up to him, right, Matt? I mean, his little phone or text messaging must go on 24/7. This has turned into like the strangest thing about college sports and college football in particular is guys, I mean, tens of quarterbacks jumping into the portal, not just Cal McCord, but around the country, starting quarterbacks moving on, et cetera. It's been crazy, and it seems to be getting crazier, right?
Yeah, I certainly tip my cap to Peter Nakos. He's one of my best friends in this whole world, and certainly works very hard to stay, with his ear to the ground and finding things out. And every time you go on Twitter or something, you see him breaking some kind of news, and the guy doesn't sleep. So that's for sure. He's trying to keep up with the madness that is the transfer portal. It's basically free agency out here, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'll tell you what, getting back to the Ohio State quarterback conundrum, and whether you take a quarterback, and what kind of quarterback do you take? Do you take a plug and play guy, at least alleged plug and play guy? Watch out for those guys. Kind of hit or miss in that regard. It has been the first couple of years of the portal, at least from my vantage point. Bottom line is, if you've got a guy and you really believe in him, like a Devin Brown was a 5-star guy coming out of high school, one in some recruiting services considered the best overall quarterback prospect in that class 2 years ago. I mean, why do you think a guy leaving somewhere who might have some experience, but also have a passel of turn? You know how much Ryan Day despises turnovers, and it's just interesting to me that people think this guy sitting over here who was part of a 5 or 7 or 8 win season is better than somebody you got sitting in your own place that you hand picked to come to Ohio State, was a 5-star, was a winner in high school. It's hard to believe, you know, I don't understand people's infatuation with they think it's a known, but it's really an unknown. Why is that guy leaving that school? Why did his own coaches give up on him? You know, et cetera. I think you really got to look long and hard, especially in the quarterback position. Do you agree?
That's just the shiny new thing. You know, that's what it is.
Well, I know
Especially,
what people are infatuated with, but coaches do have to
yeah.
look long and hard, right?
Well, and I think something that we constantly have to remind ourselves from Ohio State and you know, Buckeye Nation and the media, like all of us, we're 37 yards away from not having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
We're 37 yards away from Ohio State being undefeated, most likely beating Iowa in that Big Ten championship and being the 1 seed, preparing for it. If we're calling it how it is right now, preparing for Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and none of it matters, this conversation. But that's not what happened. And, you know, for the last almost month or so, the conversation has been about compared to what the last, you know, following CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins is a tough act.
Yeah.
And the standard is the standard, as they say. And
Yeah.
I don't think Ohio State felt the standard was met.
11-1 is not good enough, but you know, it's 11-1, but you didn't even win the East Division of the Big Ten, much less the Big Ten championship. You didn't get in the college football playoff, and that is the level at which Ohio State is operating right now, or aspiring to stay at that level, is that elite level of 5 or 8 schools are in the conversation every year for the college football playoff. Now, of course, that pressure's off because they're going to 12 teams next year. Ohio State would be getting ready for a college football playoff game as we speak. And this time next year, actually, they would have probably already played it by this time next year or next season. So it's crazy how much things are changing in that regard. I wanted to ask you this. Now, I don't need long explanations. I just kind of need factual answers, not factual, heartfelt, subjective answers to these questions.
Okay.
Who are the 2 players who will make the biggest impact? We may have already named them. Who are the 2 players from the Ohio State 2024 signing class that will make the biggest impact in the 2024 season for Ohio State?
Jeremiah Smith, certainly number 1 there. Number 2, this is a good one. It's all dependent upon who really signs, and, you know, who comes back for, you know, because I
didn't ask you that. I asked you who are the 2 guys that will make the biggest impact on the Ohio State football program in 2024 from the 2024 signing class. Dude, it's got to be one of the 2. Let's say they get all 3 running backs, but let's say they only get 2. Samuel, you know, the Dixon kid, and Jordan Lyle. James Peoples, my favorite. You can go back and watch a video I did with him about 10 months ago when I was down visiting my younger brother down in Texas. I went over and had a long conversation with James Peoples and his coach there at Veterans Memorial High School just north of San Antonio. I mean, this guy's got a big upside. I mean, he may scratch where Ohio State itches, you know, especially in the spring with that running back room being what it is, with the 2 guys jumping into the portal. We don't know what's going to happen with Travion Henderson, like you said, like what you were alluding to as we record this. But I think James Peoples has got a hell of a shot at making an impact, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's gotta get healthy. He missed a pretty significant portion of his senior season with an injury. He was able to get back in at the tail end there. He played in 2 of their playoff games as well. And I mean, one of those games he had like almost 200 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, showcasing why he's going to be an Ohio State Buckeye. So we'll put in James Peoples. He will be on campus in January as an early enrollee. He's scheduled to play in the All-American Bowl in his hometown, San Antonio, Texas, as well. And once all of those highlights and shenanigans are done, he's going to be getting worked out by Ohio State strength and conditioning coach Mick Marotti and be doing mat drills and all of that stuff that Ohio State Buckeyes just love so much to do. So
Real
we'll go
quick.
with Jeremiah Smith and James Peoples.
There you go. Well, final answer. Boom. Now they will have the opportunities. It looks like the defensive back from this signing class that could make an immediate impact depth wise. Just give me one.
A lot of people would expect Aaron Scott Jr., cornerback from Springfield, Ohio. Super, super talented. He's a long cornerback. Ohio State likes that. You like that anymore? But the name I hear from the coaching staff all the time about is Jalen McLean, the 4-star safety from West Orange, New Jersey, played at Seton Hall Prep.
Yeah.
He is an exception to the rule with the private schools. He will also be an early enrollee on campus in January. And that's a good thing. There's potentially going to be a few safety spots open and for the taking. I mean, Sonny Styles will return for Ohio State. Malik Hartford, who had a pretty successful freshman year by all counts, will return for Ohio State. But Josh Proctor, much like I said about Xavier Johnson, the hourglass is running out of sand for Josh Proctor. And then Lathan Ransom is still yet to make an NFL decision. I mean, Jalen McLean is a super, super talented guy, physical, ended his senior season with 186 tackles or something like that from the safety position. And whether it's going to be, for the safeties like on the field, or it's a special teams impact like we saw with Jermaine Matthews, and that led him to getting more time at the cornerback. Obviously, having Denzel Burke get banged up helped out there as well. But I like Jalen McLean, the safety from Seton Hall Prep in West Orange, New Jersey, to come in and make some noise.
What part of keep it short did you not understand when I asked you to give me answers here?
Well, I really just I follow your go. I watch your guys' videos, and they ask for short, and you go on the tangents. And you know what? I just admire you, Tim. How about that? How's that?
Yeah, boy, man. Set your sights higher, young man, higher. Now keep this one short. Well,
Okay.
You can do whatever you want.
All right.
Is Ohio State going to get a signing day surprise? Now, remember, we're recording this, ladies and gentlemen, on Monday morning. I'm putting our LettermenRow.com recruiting guru, Matt Parker, on the spot here. Is Ohio State going to get a signing day surprise? And will Edric Houston sign with Ohio State? But could there be somebody else sign with Ohio State we haven't spoken of, who's not on the commit list as we speak?
I mean, someone could. Do I think that'll happen? No.
Okay.
Just the direction that Ohio State has been going with its recruiting, with the way, the noise about the program. I don't expect any surprises, any positive surprises, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm more so prepping for guys that are committed that sign elsewhere, quite honestly.
All right. Who are the guys who, I mean, will Edric Houston, do you think, sign? I mean, you're not held to this, okay? Because you don't know what Edric's thinking. Will Edric Houston sign with Ohio State?
Well, that's where you're wrong. I am held to this because people will hold me to it.
Yeah.
But
they'll forget.
I do think he will sign with Ohio State.
Wait a minute. Let me ask it another way. How important is it that he signs with Ohio State? Because, you look at the roster right now from the 2024 class, or I think there are only 2 defensive linemen. The other one's Eric Mensah, the kid from Stafford, Virginia, defensive tackle prospect. How important is it for them to hang on to Edric Houston, in your opinion? I mean, he's a 5-star.
It's getting just as important for Ohio State to hang on to Edric Houston as it is for Ohio State to hang on to Jeremiah Smith. You mentioned it. Ohio State only has 2 defensive linemen in this 2024 class. One of them is a defensive end, which is the 5-star Edric Houston. And the defensive end room at Ohio State is not deep. That's like diving headfirst into the baby pool at the local swimming pool. There's not a lot of depth there, and you need a guy like Edric Houston, who, again, that's another early enrollee. He can come in, make some serious noise, get coached up by Larry Johnson, learn the system, get the strength and conditioning right, nutrition and all of that stuff. Ohio State, I mean, plain and simple, Tim, Ohio State needs to sign Edric Houston. They need
Gotcha.
to sign him.
Will Deontay Armstrong and Devontae Armstrong, two offensive linemen from Lakewood, Ohio, Lakewood St. Ed's, right? Am I right about that?
That is correct, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
These guys, in my opinion, look the part. They both could put on some weight, basically, but I think they look pretty stout as we speak. Which of the Armstrong brothers will eventually be the better offensive lineman for Ohio State?
Wow.
Wait a minute. Could you see them starting at be the two starting guards in a couple of years, both Armstrong brothers, or the two starting tackles? Is that a possibility with these guys? Do they have that kind of upside? Clearly, they're 4 stars, heavy 4 stars. What's your take?
I mean,
they're the most intriguing double signee in this class, in my opinion. Go ahead now.
I certainly think they do. Otherwise, Ohio State, Justin Fry wouldn't have taken their commitments, wouldn't have offered them scholarships if they didn't believe in them, right? I mean, that's kind of how this whole thing works. And the Armstrongs, especially, I mean, those are two in-state guys from Lakewood, suburb of the Cleveland area, that those kids wanted to be Buckeyes more than anything. I mean, went to every single recruiting camp going into their junior year of high school. Just every time that they had the opportunity to be at Ohio State, they took it. And you know what? The biggest thing about the Armstrongs, and I'll get to your what could I see for them? But the thing that I think,
maybe in an hour or so. Go ahead.
I'll get there. But this is important. This next thing is important. The Armstrongs, they bring such a championship mentality to Ohio State because they have won 3 consecutive Division I state championships in the state of Ohio.
Yep.
And that's a very impressive thing to do, especially with how competitive the Division I bracket is come playoff time. So they're bringing that championship mentality to a place that, prides itself on having that mentality. And yet Ohio State hasn't won a championship since 2014, 2015, when it beat Oregon for the national championship. So I think that's important to have that in the room. Now,
you know how many Big Ten teams have won a championship other than Ohio State since 2002 when Jim Trussell and his group got it done? 0, zippo. Go ahead now.
That's right. To your question so for clarification, Ohio State projects Deontay Armstrong as an offensive tackle and Devontae as a guard. Could play center, but more of a guard because he's very, very athletic, can pull and do all the things that they like to do. I think right now going into it, Devontae, the offensive guard, is going to have maybe a little bit of an easier transition because he has some help being on the inside, whereas Deontay being on the island, being an offensive tackle, he has the athleticism, but the size isn't there just yet.
Yeah.
If those things can come to fruition and they can, add up, I'm very intrigued because the mindset of these guys, Tim, I mean, they just want to go out on the field. And same with Ian Moore, the 4-star offensive tackle from New Palestine, Indiana.
Yeah.
They just want to go out and they want to hit people. They're just nasty. And that's Ohio State needs some of that, I think, after watching the offensive line play this year.
Yeah, 4 offensive linemen so far in this 2024 class. I like all 4 of them in one form or fashion. I think Ohio State's done a pretty good job. Of course, getting the Armstrong brothers, that's a double whammy. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like Alabama. They couldn't put Alabama in the college football playoff without putting Tennessee in there. Without putting Texas in there. It's kind of like the same thing, but they're both quality, big time quality. I like those Armstrong brothers. Hey, last thing, is there anybody from this 22-man proposed signing class for Ohio State on Wednesday that we haven't talked about that just and in a nutshell, succinctly, give me a synopsis of a guy that you think people are sleeping on a little bit?
Ooh, the sleepers.
Could the Garrett Stover kid, could he be a sleeper? I mean, he's a 4-star. How can you be a sleeper? But
I'm
I
not
think he'll
saying
be
anyone.
intriguing for people based on his cousin, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying anyone with the last name Stover is going to
He's
be
a
a sleeper,
sleeper. Yeah. They
especially
don't
when
sleep
they're
in, they get up early.
especially when it's a top 150 prospect like Garrett is.
Yeah.
I'll say Miles Lockhart, a 4-star cornerback from Basha, Arizona, played at Chandler High School. Scratch that, reverse that. From Chandler, Arizona, played at Basha High School. There we go. Ohio State projects him as that nickel corner, nickel safety. I think he is a pretty underrated guy in this class. I do think the interior offensive lineman Gabe Van Sickle is a bit of a underrated guy as far as in the class goes. I do like him a lot.
Yeah.
Who else? Both of the tight ends, quite honestly,
Really?
with Max LeBlanc and Demarion Witten. Max LeBlanc played football in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but is originally from Montreal, Canada. And then Demarion Witten from the historic Glenville High School. Also Bryce West from Glenville High School, but I don't think Bryce West is an underrated guy in this class at all. He's an extremely talented guy. I would say to wrap it up, Miles Lockhart, Gabe Van Sickle, and then the two tight ends, Max LeBlanc and Demarion Witten.
Because they're going to have opportunity. I mean, they're going to have opportunity from the get-go to make an impact. Those tight ends are based on the tight end room as we speak. Well, Matt Parker, thanks once again for joining me on a pre-Christmas Tim May show, man. Do you sing "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas"? Do you any kind of singing at all?
You know, when I'm driving,
is the answer no?
No, it's just when I'm driving from point A to point B. You know, I'll put on Christmas. This is the only time of year I listen to the radio.
Your favorite Christmas song is?
I like Josh Groban's version of "Oh Holy Night."
Oh, really?
That's a good tune.
I like Jonathan Antoine's version of that opera voice from Great Britain, who follows me on Twitter, and I follow him back. And I've always been intrigued, man. I even saw him in concert up in Toronto way back in what was that, the summer of 2019. Guy's got a hell of a voice, and his voice was literally built to sing "Oh Holy Night." But anyway, I hope you and yours, Matt Parker, have a great holiday, a great Christmas season. Me and my family, my 2 grandsons, we're planning on having that. And then, the next time, ladies and gentlemen, we speak, the Tim May Show, it'll be on the ground, so to speak, in Texas. I don't know if it's my native Texas. I was born in Alabama, but raised in Texas. So I guess, Davy Crockett, is known as a Texan. He was only there for like 30 days. But until then, Matt Parker, thanks for joining the Tim May Show, man.
Thanks for having me, Tim, and the same to you and your family. I hope you guys enjoy the holiday season.
Definitely will. And ladies and gentlemen, until next week, we'll see you then.